everyone thinks the answer to scaling on Instagram is by posting more. More reels, more stories, more carousels, just more. But what if I told you that the fastest way to 10x your revenue through Instagram has nothing to do with posting more and everything to do with doubling down on what you already have? Because increasing your volume of posts, carousels, stories, whatever it is, only works when you actually have a predictable pipeline. And I like to compare this idea of a predictable pipeline to the ads world, where you'll run a paid ad on Instagram, Google, Meta, whatever, and you'll have a full pipeline of steps. So you'll have the ad, which leads to a landing page. The landing page probably has a email opt-in, maybe a VSL, and then there'll be a book call link, and then at some point they'll also, be able to close them on the call. But each phase in this step has a metric. So you have the ad, which has a cost. You put, ad spend into the ad. Then there's an ad creative, which also has metrics such as, hook rates and retention, all this stuff. Then there's a CTR, so a click-through rate. So people who actually, from that ad, then click on your landing page. Then on your landing page, you have an opt-in rate for people to give your email. Even if you're, very good with your tracking, you might track how much of the VSL they're watching. And then from there, you have the book call rate and you have a close rate. And you have all of these numbers. But in this is a predictable pipeline, because when you have this setup, all of your numbers. So if I put in $10,000 of ad spend into this ad, I'm going to get, $50, $100, $200,000 out of it. And so we want the same thing with Instagram, with creatives, where we can say, if I put in all this effort, all this time into creating these posts, I will get this much money out. So then if I increase the number of posts, I double the number of posts, this should double my revenue each month. The same way, and if I double my ad spend, I should double my revenue each month. And in this video, I'm actually going to show you how you can get to this sort of state where you have this predictability with your content and your revenue. I'm going to show you how to analyze your content properly to find the hidden revenue drivers in your content, and then how to multiply that impact to double down on what's working, so then you can get this exponential growth in your revenue through organic, because the reason you're doing Instagram is because of how much reach you can get. And so I'm going to show you how to properly utilize that. But before I jump into that, I just want to change one of your beliefs. And because I think so many people right now, like founders, think growth is just doing more. Like it's just more. And this doesn't just apply to content. I know I spoke about, posting more content, more videos, more of this, but it also applies to other areas where they think more is better, and they just think outworking the competition, right? Everyone is just working too hard, which sounds like a very weird thing to say. And there's this very much almost like Tate-esque, like just hard work beats everything vibe, which, for some people that does work, and to an extent there is a certain amount of hard or deep work that needs to be done in order to scale. But they kind of assume that that's it, like there's no other way. When in reality, and this is a model I like to base, my business off of, and I tell other people about it, but I prefer, instead of putting in hard work, I want to live a nice life. I want to have time to have a coffee on what day is it today? Tuesday. I want to be able to have a coffee on randomly at 2:00 on a Tuesday with a friend. And when you're in this hard work mindset, you don't really have the ability to do that, because even if you did go for a coffee, you just feel bad because you're not working, which is where this kind of trap goes wrong. And so applying this back to content, where this mindset goes wrong is that then they think, okay, I just need to do more and more. So they start kind of repeatedly spamming this incredibly low quality content, or maybe it is good quality, but it's putting it might not be attracting the right people, and it might not be, generating revenue. And I see this all the time because, I install software for my clients to help them track their revenue through their Instagram posts. So I can see which posts, make how much money. I can say this one makes 10K, that makes 50K, this sort of thing. And I see it again and again where people are spamming this content that just doesn't actually bring in revenue. It's stupid, right? Because if you did a tenth of the work and you're just posting stuff that's not making you money anyway, and you're just 10xing your output, you're just 10xing nothing, right? You're not making any money, or you're just making scraps, and you're multiplying that output to just make a couple more scraps, or literally just not make anything, which is completely pointless. And this is where this whole idea of judging success from views and engagement comes from instead of money. Like, I massively promote, especially if you see my Instagram, a lot of my reels are about this, but I massively promote like not basing your business off of metrics that aren't business metrics. Like I said before in the ads world, it's your CTR, your book call rates, your, how much money you're closing people for on your offer. These all matter because they're directly tied to your business revenue. But then people start to track things like views, engagement. The worst one I see all the time, that it makes me sad to see sometimes, because just how much this is spread, is the save rate on Instagram. People are like, if I get lots of saves on my post, that must mean the post is valuable. But that's not always the case, is it? Like, someone could save a post just because it's funny and entertaining. There's a million reasons why someone might save a post, but there's not a direct correlation between these metrics and revenue, which is why people end up going wrong, attracting the wrong audience, and then they get stuck in another problem of, why I have this massive audience, why does no one want to buy my offer? Which is, another huge problem. And, there's so many common behaviors which kind of just show kind of what I'm highlighting here, where, people like post daily, like this whole daily posting thing. I like to post daily, but I have the software to track what's actually making me money. But other people will post daily just because they think, I need to build consistency. More is better. And they just, I don't actually know anybody who's posted daily consistently, especially in the people who are actually making money. Like, if they're posting daily, it's because someone else is editing it for them and doing all the work for them. But yeah, it's just this work mindset I'm not a fan of. And because also most posts only reach like 10-20% of your audience of followers. So like, this is another like mindset shift, that like a belief shift that I need you to kind of listen to, is a lot of people as well. So part of my model is taking a post that works and doubling down on it. I call it scaling through creative, because you're taking one piece of creative and like splitting up all the components and determining what actually made that video do well. What actually made that video, when I say do well, what made that video bring in revenue? And what this usually means is almost posting an identical piece of content, but with something slightly changed. Maybe you change the hook, or even something like, if you go as far as like Mr. Beast, I wouldn't recommend this for most people. Mr. Beast will literally optimize to the point where he'll literally test, in thumbnails, whether his mouth is open when he's smiling or not, and all these like, even just like hues of color. So, maybe I'll do a slightly colder thumbnail or a warmer thumbnail. This is like too much in my opinion, but I'm just trying to get rid of this belief for what I say next, later in this video, that seeing the same piece of content twice is a bad thing, like, or posting a super similar video, because ultimately you need data. Like, I'm very data driven in my approaches. You need data to test things, and the best way to do tests, you may know from studying science in school or whatever, is by keeping everything the same and changing one singular thing. And then by changing that one singular thing, you can actually properly determine if that one thing has an effect, which is exactly what we want to do. So like, the ultimate goal with all of this is not posting more and more content, but posting smarter. And like, the framework I'll go into later will help you with this, because we want to post smarter and not just bulk spam posts. Like, every post needs intention, and it needs to either be testing something, or it's something that we know brings in money and we're just repeating. And that should be it. So focus on revenue per post, not focusing on metrics, not even focusing on views. Views don't really matter. Like, if you're small, maybe they do. Like, to a point you need some reach, but past that, you don't want to go viral. You don't want the millions of views. You just want the niche audience. I mean, I guess it also depends on what you're selling. If you're selling something like I'm selling, tracking for Instagram that's very specific for businesses, like yourself. But if you're like a coach or like a gym coach, you kind of want to target, people or a weight loss coach, you want to target fat people, overweight people, which is a bit of a broader market. But then if it's like a marketing agency, you're in the same boat as me, and it needs to just be, business owners who run ads, if you're like a paid ads agency or something. And then from there, we want to extract like ROI. We want to extract these winning posts, and I'll show you the process to do all of this in just a second. So then we can just double down on those posts, and then just scale by iteration. And then the outcome is hopefully to, anywhere up to 10x your revenue, like even more. Like there is really no limit to this, because you're just constantly improving. So obviously it takes time to improve, but like there is no ceiling like to how much you could like multiply your revenue here. So anyway, let me just jump into the framework, the process to get all of these results. Now that I've changed a few of your beliefs, or at least you've listened to some belief changes. So the first part is finding your winning posts. And like I said, we don't want to focus on vanity metrics. Like finding winning posts needs to purely be revenue and being able to track, which post brings in that revenue. And we've already broken that belief that views don't matter. More views doesn't mean more money and all of this sort of thing. So the way that I track how much revenue each Instagram post brings in for me and my clients is through my software that we set up for them. But obviously, I don't want to say, oh, well, to continue this video, you have to, buy my offer. So I want to give you a way of determining this for yourself. And fundamentally, this works via tracking. Like you need to, like I mentioned before, you need to track data in order to be able to determine what outcome that's having, right? And then you adjust the inputs and the outputs will change. And so the data you need to be able to determine per post revenue is firstly collecting data from people you've already closed. And there's a whole multitude of ways of doing this. The way we do it is by literally collecting all of your Instagram interactions and then determining which of those interactions led to a sale, by, flagging who you've closed and stuff. But you can do like a smaller version of this. So the most basic form of doing this, which, the more basic, the less specific. So, you if you can do the more specific option. But the most basic is literally every time you onboard a client or someone closes, you just send them a onboarding form where you ask them to comment on, something simple could literally just be where did you come from or whatever. But something you can do is show them a few of your Instagram videos and say, oh, which of these videos have you watched? Or just ask them a more general question of which Instagram reels do you think has helped you make your decision to close the day? Or something along these lines. There's a lot more depth you can go into. So that's like the super like lazy man way. The next step is you'll probably need a VA for this, or if you do have the free time, maybe do it yourself. But the whole idea of this is to save you time anyway. So you'd probably need an assistant or a VA or an automation or something. But whenever someone closes, go through your Instagram post and look for their username. So maybe on the onboarding form, you collect their Instagram username, or if you close them through the DMs anyway, you have their username, and you go through each post and identify the interactions. And say that you close them today, you probably don't need to go look at content 6 months ago. Our software does that, but this is a simpler way. You could just go for the last month or two, because usually on average it takes about 60 days to convert someone, which is a statistic that's helpful to know. So you could go up to 60 days, you could just do 30 days, but just go through each of your posts and identify the likes, the comments, look at your stories, look at the DMs, and each of these events, interactions with your account from people that have closed from you are likely to close more people in the future, like other leads. And to identify which of these events and signals are stronger than others, because, if they've liked one post, you can't suddenly say, oh, well, if anyone likes this post, they must want to buy my offer. That's not how it works. But the best way is to look at all of your clients that have closed and find correlations between the interactions. So, say you closed 10 clients this week. If all 10 of those clients maybe liked the same post or commented on the same post, or something along those lines, that probably means that if another person were to comment on that post, it's going to contribute to the sale. So then that post is probably a high value post, right? Because all of the people who are closing and are paying in full, you could separate it by are watching and interacting with this post. And so you should make more posts like that, because one, it's getting interactions from buyers, but two, it's actually contributing to the sale. And so that's the first step, right? Is identifying which posts are your winners, like which ones are actually bringing in most of the revenue. And like I've said previously in the video, 20% of your posts are probably going to result in 80% of your revenue, through Instagram. And so there's probably not that many posts. And so the correlation between different people that have already closed is going to be quite high. And there's probably posts which have lots and lots of sort of intersections between leads. So after you've analyzed which posts are your winners, the next step would be to double down on those posts to make more money. But the first step of doing this is analyzing why they won. And whenever I analyze a piece of content, whether I'm optimizing for views or I'm optimizing for revenue, because I've been posting content for a while, and before I used to think, views are the way to go, so I was optimizing for views and all this stuff. But it applies the same for revenue. And there's only two things that you should really focus on. Like, you can make this much, much more granular, like I said before, like the Mr. Beastification, like changing literally a font or a color, or that's too obsessive. But the two main things is either the hook of the video, i.e., the first 3 seconds, or it's the topic of the video. And so the hook, usually it'll do well for a couple of reasons. One, it's either it gets lots of attention. So even though I've said like views doesn't equal revenue, usually, if you have more views, usually there's more revenue, but not because, but it's not linear. So more views can help bring more eyeballs onto you, but there is a point where those eyeballs are completely worthless and it's the wrong audience. So the hook can either be because it got attention, or the much, much more valuable reason is because it's specific to your ideal client, your ICP. And these are like the best hooks to find. And then the other reason is the topic. So similar to the hook, the main reason the topic is like, one is attention. So it's a trending topic, or it's interesting. Like, for example, you could take a trending topic and apply it to your niche, or apply it to your ICP or your offer or whatever it is. Or the much, much more valuable one is it's the topic. And usually you can go a bit further and say like it's a certain pain point or dream scenario that has been hit in the video that applies to your ICP or your offer. Sometimes it can not be, it cannot be related to your offer at all, and it can literally just be a topic. For example, I know someone whose ICP is the classic like 9-to-5ers in London, corporate life, getting on the tube every day and all this stuff. And he had an incredibly profitable video because he just commented on his day-to-day, like at the time he was in that corporate life as well, and he's got lots of footage from it. And so one video that did really well was just because of relatability, was just him showing off his, well, not showing off, he's doing a lot better now, but is showing his life before, and showing how he was stuck on the tube and it was miserable and he didn't want to do it, and he's stuck in this rat racy thing or whatever. And so it can just be super relatable and not even be related to your offer or whatever. But those are the two main reasons, or the two main things you should test to, analyze why a video won. It's either the hook or it's the topic of the video, which is like the body of the video. And for both of them, it's usually either because it's got lots of attention, or has kept, for the topic, it's got high retention, or it's specific pain points and maybe situations, scenarios, right, that you've mentioned in the video. And, that you can test other elements, like I said, like the music, the captions, visuals, the editing style, the format, whatever. But the two main ones is those. So then now we've identified what's winning. We've identified why it's winning. Now this is where it comes in with you iterate and multiply. And I call this process scaling through creative, because you take one creative asset that's done well and you make variants and mutations and all this stuff into multiple different creative assets to test it, and each one is designed specifically to test one of those things. So if you, for example, you have a video that does really well, in reality you don't know if it's the hook or the topic, or if a certain piece of music works or whatever. So you make another variant of that original video and change that one thing. This first video made you lots of money, but if you post that same video, as it is, it's probably also going to make money again, and a new audience is likely to see it. But what we want to do is almost post the identical thing, but make one change. So change the hook, change the topic, change something, and then from there you have your baseline, you have your post and how much money it made, and then you have a new variant which has a new hook, has a new, something's changed. You're testing something with this one piece of content, and from there you would then have to wait a few weeks to see if it's actually the effect of that change. But you want to make multiple different pieces of content, each one with a singular change. And this will make you more money because you're doubling down on what's working, but you're also testing at the same time. So you're doubling down, so you're going to make, if it was just one post before and you post 5 that are similar, you could have the potential to 5x that revenue, because you've gone from one singular asset to 5 different assets, and each asset has a test, and those tests might improve, or it could actually make the performance worse. And so, yeah, you want to create repetition, create variance, and don't fear like repeating the same content, because only 10 to 20% of your followers will actually see a post when you post it. And the great thing about Instagram is the time for like a post to expire, if you like, is very short. It's just a few days. And the likelihood of you posting a piece of content and 90% of your followers don't actually see each post that you post out. Only 10 to 20% of your followers see each post. So you could literally post for a week and, half your audience might not see any of those posts just because of how they're using Instagram or whatever. And so I just treat this whole process almost like being a scientist. Like you want to play around. But the benefit of this is actually you don't actually have to use any creative energy as well, because you've used all the creative energy to create that first post. But now all these new ones, because they're just variants and it's kind of just the same video, you don't need any more creative energy. Like you just change the hook, change some text, change some music, whatever. The other thing I should mention is when you're testing the hook is take the hook from that video and put it on a different video. So with a completely different topic, completely different whatever, to test if the hook also does well and stuff like that. And yeah, this is just scaling through creative, and you can take this a step further using the Mr. Beast method, is what I like to call it, but adapted for revenue, of course, which is just where you testing much more specific details. This is a lot more strenuous, but if you have the team, if you have the ability to do this, it can be very valuable. But testing colors, testing thumbnails, if you're on YouTube or whatever, just these micro things. But I think for now, just as a baseline, if this is completely new concept for you, then I wouldn't go too deep into it like that. But yeah, so I hope this video has actually been helpful. If you do, I've mentioned that I run a software offer which helps people track exactly how much revenue per post they make on Instagram. So I can see this post made 10k, this post made 20k. If you want us to set that up for you, there's a book call link down below, which can be super helpful to help you scale and kind of get this snowball effect on your revenue. But yeah, book a call down below. I can walk you through it. I can just see if it applies to your business. Some people it doesn't work out. I've actually rejected 2 people today just because I don't think it'd actually be valuable to them. So if you do book a call, I'll make sure it's actually valuable for you. But yeah, so if you want to do that, book call link down below. Otherwise, I hope this video has been helpful, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.